Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, joined by Riley Fessler. How are you, Riley?
Pretty good.
And Minna Stein. How you doing, Minna?
Fantastic.
Fantastic. Who's kicking us off today?
Me. The U.S. government has charged and sanctioned Russian state media executives accusing Moscow of running a disinformation campaign
What?
I know, so out of character.
Yeah.
I'm
This
shocked.
one is aimed at influencing the 2024 presidential election, which has certainly never happened before.
Not once.
The coordinated actions by the Justice, State, and Treasury departments include charges against RT executives for paying a U.S. company to distribute pro-Russian content. RT's editor-in-chief, Margarita Simonyan, was among those sanctioned. U.S. officials allege the campaign sought to undermine public trust in institutions, reduce international support for Ukraine, and promote pro-Russian policies. The U.S. has also restricted visas for Kremlin-backed media employees and seized domain names tied to AI-generated disinformation targeting U.S. voters.
Yeah, and some of the money went to a right-wing leaning company in Tennessee or someplace called Tenet, which had a bunch of sort of media personalities working for it who were super popular with, I don't know, Trump, his son, Tucker Carlson.
What?
Yeah, and so like all the Republicans have their they're putting their wagons in a circle here because I think there's a pretty wide sense that if they were funneling $10 million to this dinky little company in Tennessee, it probably wasn't the only company.
Yeah.
And these are probably not the only targets. And so, a big chunk of the MAGA world is going, we better check our incomings to see who they're from. And then there's another chunk of it going, we know who they're from and we better cover that up. So it's a big story. It's not just more Russia. And I think it was pretty bold and smart of the Justice Department to step up and take action now. But it's a big story, and I don't think it's anywhere near over yet.
And some of the names tied to Tenet Media that I just found: Benny Johnson, who I'm actually not familiar with; Tim Pool, who I am familiar with; Lauren Southern; Dave Rubin; Taylor Hansen; and Matt Christensen. So Tim Pool, Lauren Southern, and Dave Rubin are three names I've heard of.
And what do you think of them? Do you listen regularly?
They're idiots. Yeah,
three of my favorite names in politics.
One thing I don't talk about enough on this show is my love of watching bad right-wing commentators online, and Tim Pool and Dave Rubin are at the top of my list of people that don't know anything but say a lot. So yeah. I'm not necessarily surprised by this.
Have you ever heard of any of these people, Minna?
I have, unfortunately. I bang my head against the wall every day trying to forget them, but I can't.
But yeah, well, I mean, Tim Pool Trump was on Tim Pool, and
Trump was on Tim Pool,
and
yeah.
So was that Einstein Don Jr.
Yeah, Tim Pool was one of those guys that tried to brand himself as like, I'm not political, I'm just like a common sense centrist, and then that kind of facade.
The other thing that was kind of interesting here was that if you dig deep into this indictment, there's all sorts of detail. Like, what are the talking points they want to advance? And it's all the right-wing talking points that you hear from Trump, that you heard from convention speeches during Trump, that you hear from Musk. By the way, Musk amplifies these Tim Pools and these other characters on a regular basis. But I thought the real pièce de résistance in this whole thing, as far as I was able to dig into it, was that at one point or another, they refer to a commentator who was doing a video shoot in a supermarket in Russia. And we all know that was Tucker Carlson, right? And that the commentator's comments about Russia were so biased that the Russian handler in this case was like, well, I didn't think we should release it. It was too over the top. And I was like, this fantastic. And if you remember, him going through a Moscow supermarket going, this is amazing. Their shopping carts are so much better than our shopping carts.
Yeah, they're anti-theft shopping carts and their bread.
They have, bread.
I don't know how to tell you this, Tucker, but lots of places have bread.
Yeah, well, he's never.
That's the first time he's ever done his own shopping, probably.
Yeah, but I do think it's important to remember that Tucker is sort of right in the middle of this. I think he is more deeply in the middle of this than this indictment shows us. And Tucker was sitting there with Trump. Tucker talked at the convention. Tucker was like the guy who persuaded Trump, and this is going to come as a big shock to you in a minute, so I'm glad you're sitting down. Tucker was the guy who persuaded Trump to pick J.D. Vance, the other pro-Moscow shill in this whole thing.
That does not shock me.
The Russians might have shot themselves in the foot on that one.
Yeah, well, I have to write something about this, and I was like, well, what do I write? What would happen if the Russians bought an entire U.S. political party? But then I thought, what would happen if they want their money back? Because, this is not, this is not going anywhere. But, it does say something about them that they've really zeroed in on the biggest idiots in the United States. and you talk about useful idiots. This is industrial scale searching for the mega idiots in our country and trying to harness them against us. Which is, if I were going to destroy America, that's how I would do it. I would go to every high school classroom. I'd look in the last row. There would be a bunch of jerks who are like throwing shit at the people in the first couple of rows. And I would try to hire them to work for Russia. That's how I would. That's because they're the downfall. They're just waiting there to be the downfall. That wasn't you, was it, Riley?
No, I was sitting in the middle row.
That seems. And whereas Minna was sitting in the front row, weren't you? Admit it.
Right next to the teacher. Right next to the teacher.
Yeah, right. So, what a nice fresh apple you brought me today, Minna.
Exactly.
Well, I know exactly how it works. And one of the three of us was definitely like the class clown who was just saying totally inappropriate things throughout.
And have you been approached by Russia?
No, they're not going for the class clowns. They're going for the idiots.
Oh, okay.
I wish they had. Do you know how much they were paying those people at tenant meeting? They were getting like $400,000 a month.
Jeez.
I mean, come on. What would a little sense of humor hurt their Russian propaganda?
Well,
apparently
paying them to stand up in front of the American people and say, "I'm not an idiot. I'm doing the weave."
But the weave, that's a good point. And Trump, that idiot, he thinks, oh yeah, I'm going to persuade them that my confusion is a strategy by giving it a name. I'm going to call it the weave. But my dementia has a name. But to just put a button on this story, did you notice? I opened up Twitter this morning. God knows why I did that. And the trending number one story was, with no irony, no anything. This was the headline: Putin endorses Harris. And sure enough, I clicked on it because and Putin was interviewed by someone of Russia's tools, and he sat there with a big grin saying, well, we really wanted Biden, but now that he's out, we like Harris, and we love the fact that she has a healthy laugh because it shows that she's doing well. And of course, all these right-wing nitwits were like, see, Putin really wants Harris. He doesn't want Trump. And it's like, oh, really? You fucking idiots. How do we deal with them? I mean, and it's not just idiots. The Russians have programmed a lot of bots to act just like idiots. They're bot idiots. Turing was like, how could we create intelligence like human intelligence? But that's not where the money is. The money is in creating idiocy just like human idiocy. Artificial idiocy is a fast-growing business. We should get into that business.
I think we already
Maybe
are in
some
that
of our
business.
listeners. Oh, I knew somebody was going to say that. I knew, I, I knew that was coming. All right, well, let's just move on to some horrible other story.
Not so horrible. Kamala Harris proposed a more moderate increase in the top capital gain tax rate, setting it at 33% compared to President Biden's plan of 44.6%. Her approach aims to support small businesses and entrepreneurs while distancing her campaign from Biden's more aggressive tax policy. Harris's proposal includes expanding startup expense deductions and setting a goal of 25 million new small business applications. Despite the adjustment, the new rate would still be the highest since 1978, potentially affecting investment behavior.
It's going to affect investment. If you have $1 billion and you're going to go and make a big, huge investment and make a big gain on it, are you not going to do it because of this tax slight increase of a few points? Of course you are. This is just baloney. The reality is, even the higher tax increase wouldn't limit this because people want to see their money grow and they'll, pay the price that they've got to pay. And you know how I know that? Because that's how it works in every other country. We're the one that has the most aggressive tax rates of these kinds, to pro business. All right. Well, I'm sure Riley actually has a very serious story here. So let me turn to him.
Yeah, I do. A 14-year-old student opened fire at Appalachia High School in Winder, Georgia, killing 2 fellow students and 2 teachers and injuring 9 others, though those 9 at this point are expected to make a full recovery. The suspect, Colt Gray, had been previously investigated by the FBI after anonymous reports about online threats, but no action was taken due to insufficient evidence. Armed with an AR-15 style rifle, Gray was apprehended quickly after the attack. The violence has shocked the community and reignited the national debate on gun control, with President Biden alongside other political leaders calling for action. Donald Trump issued a statement but did not allude to any policy changes, while Governor Brian Kemp said it was not the day for politics or policy, which begs the question, when is?
It is never the day for politics or policy. Brian Kemp has pushed through very, very liberal gun laws, including the ability to carry a pistol without a license. The GOP, as we know, has been under the thrall of the NRA for a long, long time. And they have pushed ridiculously unconstrained policies with regard to guns. And the result is that we have this sick system in our country, 400 million guns for 330 million people. Of those 400 million guns, about half of them are owned by 3% of Americans who average 17 guns each. They say, well, we need the guns to protect ourselves, but guns are almost never used in self-defense. They are never used in self-defense of women defending themselves, for example, against attackers. People say they need them for hunting, but of course you don't need semi-automatic assault weapon for hunting, and so on. There's a massive movement out there that has made this country a constant victim. I think we're up to 650 or so mass shootings in the United States this year, averaging something like 2 a day. And it's a sickness in our country, and we need to get over it. I've written on this at some length in my Substack today. If you go to Need to Know, the Substack, it's david.rothkopf, substack.com. You can read more about this, but it's appalling, and the time to talk about it is always. Minute.
Former President Trump attended a town hall event yesterday with Fox News host Sean Hannity, where he criticized Vice President Harris, particularly focusing on her past comments about banning fracking. Trump claimed that a fracking ban would harm Pennsylvania's economy and jobs, and he urged voters to support him to protect the industry. The town hall was held in Pennsylvania, a crucial battleground state, and took place shortly before Trump's debate with Harris on September 10th. Trump also disparaged ABC News, the network hosting the upcoming debate, and defended his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, against Democratic critiques of being weird.
Good luck with that. We had a big breakthrough on the debate. The Harris campaign has relented and said they will allow the debate to mute microphones. This theoretically helps Trump, who can't stop talking and saying horrible things all the time. But there'll be reporters in the room. Presumably, they will report on what he can't stop talking about. And Harris seems very likely to clean Trump's clock when it comes to this. Trump's return to the fracking issue perhaps makes some sense in Pennsylvania. The problem is that she has not just been open to fracking, but actually cast a vote that enabled it to continue in the United States. And for 4 years, her position on this has been quite clear. So, whether that sticks or not, or whether it is a bigger impact than, say, J.D. Vance and his running mate, Trump, being weird, we shall see. Riley?
A judge is set to hear arguments in the federal election subversion case against Donald Trump, marking the first hearing since the Supreme Court ruled that former presidents have broad immunity from criminal charges. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan will oversee the hearing, but Trump is not expected to attend. Special counsel Jack Smith's team filed a revised indictment in compliance with the Supreme Court's decision, removing certain allegations. Meanwhile, Trump's defense plans to file motions to dismiss the case, including one based on a previous ruling that Smith's appointment was unconstitutional. Neither side expects a trial before the 2024 election.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, offered some praise for the Justice Department earlier. I think, these cases could have been handled better. The amicus brief filed yesterday in the Florida case calls for Eileen Cannon to be removed from the case, which makes some sense to me. Clearly, Trump is playing for time and hopes that he'll be elected president, and these two federal cases can then be undone by him. However, if he loses, these trials will take place, and he has a very real risk of jail time, which would be a heck of a story. And, I hope it happens because that's what's just. But I also hope it happens because, honestly, I mean, listen to this podcast. How many times have we mentioned this guy? How much is enough? I mean, we've been talking about this guy nonstop for years and years and years, and he's like the worst American. I mean, couldn't we talk about, I don't know, saw a really nice video of a bunch of elephants returning to the guy who took care of them down the river. It's very sweet. There's all those videos of lions being reunited with the humans who took care of them, and they hug each other. We could talk about that. Wouldn't that be better than Trump? I mean, surely, Riley, you spend your evenings watching those kind of things on TikTok.
Oh, yeah. I'm not watching Trump speak on TikTok, and if I can avoid it anyway, which is becoming increasingly hard to avoid.
Trump or TikTok?
Trump.
TikTok's great. Let's just be honest. I mean, yes, it may be a Chinese tool of spying, but it's just so entertaining. No.
Listen, it's worth it for the hours of entertainment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No downsides.
If they want to know that I like cute videos of dogs, so be it. I can live with myself.
They know that. and I mix it up with a bunch of Harris videos so I don't feel so bad. But that's what I'm there for. Is like the little puppy who becomes friends with a duckling. I mean, that's a classic. And he like puts his paw around the little duckling. It's really sweet.
I've gotten in the somehow in the algorithm of like soldiers coming home and surprising their kids.
Oh, I love
I'm
those.
Just sitting there like tearing up on the metro.
I love those. Yeah, no, I weep profusely at all of those. I weep profusely. What is your secret pleasure there, Minna, with TikTok?
I really like watching cooking videos.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
It's a more productive use of TikTok.
Yeah, well, that's kind of interesting. Have you ever listened to our podcast, The Secret Life of Cookies?
Yes, actually. I love all kinds of cooking content, Food Network, everything. I'm consuming it all the time.
Yeah, that podcast, which is hosted by Marissa Rothkopf, no relation. No, it's my sister. She just signed a contract to write a book about chocolate chip cookies.
You told me that, and I'm very excited about it.
A whole book.
Great.
Like 70 different recipes for cookies. I mean,
I can't wait to make all 70.
Yeah, it's
I can't wait to clog my arteries with all 70.
Those are healthy. Cookies are very healthy. You don't understand the thing that science has discovered, which is that the basic food group that is healthiest for you are round foods.
Pizzas, cookies,
burgers.
Yeah.
If you make it round,
if you make
anything round, it's fine.
Well, it stands to reason. It just like goes right through you. It rolls through you.
It rolls down the gut.
It does.
I think we should change the structure of this entire podcast to be talking about science. Clearly, science and other cute videos we saw online
and health. Well, you know what? We just did. That's what we've been talking about. But see, you know what that's called? That's called a palate cleanser. Because we've had a bunch of horrible stories and a bunch of horrible people, and we just need something to cleanse the palate as we go off about our days.
And no one could accuse us of having Russia pay us to spread misinformation.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And we wouldn't do it. There's no amount of money that Russia could send us that would make us spread misinformation. But if you don't believe me, come back tomorrow and I'll prove it. As we will do each and every day. Today's Thursday, right? The week went by really fast. We will talk about all sorts of important stories, including, I have one little grandchild who's like 22 months old. And so he's gone off to school today. He's gone a couple days a week. And he's an inchworm in his class. They call them the inchworms.
That's really cute.
He's a part-time inchworm. So I'll be able to report back on how that went at his first day at inchworm school. So that's probably a good palate cleanser for tomorrow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Riley's already smiling. He loves that kind of stuff.
The name inchworm is just making me smile for some reason.
It is. It's very cute. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us. Thank you, Riley. Thank you, Minna. You can tune into podcasts. We've got them going all day, every day. We've got a special guest later today. David Hogg, who became well known after the Parkland disaster, is another Floridian, Minna.
Mm-hmm.
And we will talk a little bit about guns in the U.S., but we'll also talk about, I don't know, Gen Z. Maybe both you guys should join the podcast. And it could be all like Gen Z. And I could be like, like ask you questions as like the old guy.
The kindly patriarch of the podcast.
Yeah, fuck off. But it'd be like, so what does it feel like to actually have a future? Anyway, we can see how that goes later on. Until then, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.